Welcome back to the Debt to Success System Review channel. Today I want to talk to you about how this man, Mark of Freedom, edited his website because of the bad advice he gave me. I have copied what the website used to look like and what it now looks like. Mark of Freedom gave me the advice to transfer property out of a S corporation into the trust with the trust wording. And this is what it said back when he gave me that information. The right to contract is what protected me. No government, no judge could change the word of any contractual trust organization if it is set up correctly. So because it would be a felony for anybody to change it. And if I had transferred the property into the trust via the trust language, then it was unacceptable and a felony for anybody to say otherwise. So Mark said that since my trust was named the same as my S corporation, that I didn't need to change it on the land records. He said the check would be written to my S corporation, but it has the same name as the pure trust contract organization. Therefore, I would just deposit the check, and before the authorities found out that I had deposited it in a pure trust contract organization instead of into an S corporation, then we wouldn't need to worry about it. So I started this whole channel because he gave me that horrible advice, and I was trusting this when Mark told me about that. And then I started talking to other trust writers and telling them that I had a big piece of real estate that I had transferred into the trust via my right to contract. And this one guy said, do not think that because you created a trust, the property is in it. He said, you have got to transfer that property out of the S corporation into the trust. And so I went, oh my gosh, this is not what Mark of Freedom told me to do. He told me that I didn't need to worry about it because the check was going to be written to the trust that has the same name as the S corporation, and don't worry. Well, now look at what Mark of Freedom has changed his language to. So he is now saying, this is the old one, mind you, and I want you to read this. I want you to see this. He's got the same two top paragraphs the same. Now he says, assets like real estate should be transferred on the land records. That's because Mark had me take certain documents down to the land records office and try to file them, and the clerk of court said, we don't file these. So I had to drive back a half an hour back to my house, call Mark and say, hey, they wouldn't accept those papers. And then he said, okay, well, try this. So the next day I went back down, tried to transfer the property like Mark suggested I try to transfer the property, and guess what again? It didn't work. The clerk of the court said, nope, we don't take that, we don't take that, which are things that Mark told me they would take, but I couldn't transfer the property. So that's when I came back home and I talked to Mark, and Mark said, you know what? Don't worry about it, because my S corporation and my trust had the same name, and my Nevada LLC had the same name also. So I've got three things named with the same name. I had the FPTCO, number one, with the same name as the Nevada LLC, which is the same name as the S corporation that I was trying to transfer the property out of and into the trust via Mark's instructions. 2 days, I failed. The clerk of the court said that we don't accept this kind of filing. You can't transfer it like that. And then the secretary, the person who was helping me at the window, said, hey, you might want to make sure that what you're trying to do is actually accomplishing what you want to happen, because right now this is not working out. So she recommended that I contact an attorney. I came back and I told Mark that I needed to contact an attorney, and he said, don't worry about it, because they don't know about this. They don't know about our right to contract and that you've put it in a trust. And what they don't know is that the name of the S corporation is the same name as the trust. And so don't worry. When you get the check, you'll be able to deposit the check in the LLC, which is this LLC. But when you deposit it, you'll get the money in the LLC, and the money will somehow be connected to the FPTCO, which is where the property actually belongs to, because of this contract. Well, I just pulled up the page and realized that Mark has changed his wording, and because of me, I am sure, he says assets like real estate should be transferred on the land records. Seek the advice and help of a competent attorney for this requirement. When assets are exchanged into the trust, there is no taxable event. It is not suggested to transfer exchange real property directly into an FPTCO, which is what Mark was trying to have me do, if it is not to be held by the trust for the long term, which mine was going to be sold, because he says if it is to be sold quickly, note the FPTCOs have no tax number or bank account and therefore cannot receive the sale funds directly. Many of those that wish to sell real estate quickly have had success avoiding tax by titling the property through a pass-through LLC, which is owned by 2 FPTCOs. That is not what Mark had me do. This right here is what Mark should have had me do, is put the property in a pass-through LLC based in Nevada, which is owned by 2 FPTCOs. Instead, what Mark had me do was try to put the property in an FPTCO that he had named the same as my S-Corp and have the bank account with the LLC that had the same name as my S-Corp. And he said that since it's all the same name, when they write the check to the FPTCO, then I can deposit it in the LLC and nobody will know the difference. Or hopefully nobody will know the difference. The way he phrased it is kind of shady. He left it open so that I could be blamed if it didn't work out. But anyway, that's another story. He was trying to have me transfer my property into an FPTCO and then have a pass-through LLC that would have the same name so that I would get the check from the company buying my property and deposited it in the LLC, but it would be owned by the FPTCO. That's not what Mark is saying now. That was what he was having me do when he believed this over here was not according to this. So Mark has changed his tune. He learned by making a mistake with me. He learned all of this right here. And guess who's paying for his mistake and who trashed his trusts that was based on this stuff and based on Mark's ignorance about the proper way to move property into a trust or into a pass-through LLC, which this is what he could have done. He did not do that with me. He had me try to move the property into here, and when I couldn't, when the clerk of court told me twice that the paperwork that I was trying to submit to move the property into the trust was not working, Mark said not to worry about it because contractually I had moved the property into the trust and I didn't need to hire an attorney and make sure that it was not a taxable event moving the property into the trust. He said, don't worry about it because your LLC and this and your S-Corp all have the same name. And when the company buys your property, you'll be able to just deposit the money into the account and you won't have to pay taxes on it. Don't worry. And he often says, look, we've got a tax expert that knows the IRS through and through, and you won't have to fight the IRS. The IRS won't even notice your contract, but all this common law stuff, it's private. It's a federal pure trust contract organization that's private, so they won't be able to look at it. Well, this is what Mark should have done with me. Instead, he gave me horrible advice, and folks, I understand that Mark has now come to the agreement with me that he gave me wrong advice. And now he is giving you the right advice in this side of the equation instead of this advice. But it cost me $10,000 $600 some for Mark to learn this. And when I asked him for a refund, he said no, because it was my fault. I didn't understand how to use the trust. I didn't understand the right to contract and how the property doesn't need to be. I don't need to seek an attorney. Well, Mark, you were wrong. You ought to admit it. You ought to get my money back and for the whole thing. The thing is, folks, I asked him for a refund for all the education too, because I immediately stopped trusting Mark to be able to give me proper education about how to use all this kind of stuff. And so I don't want to take any of his modules, his classes, and all that stuff either. So I asked him for a full refund of my over $25,000. And he said, absolutely not. I wasn't going to do it. And that's why I have started this channel. Anyway, folks, this is what he should have told me how to do. He told me about this, told me I didn't need to worry about it. I'm sorry to repeat myself over and over again, but you need to know that Mark will blame you if he gives you wrong advice for being ignorant. And he will not give you a refund even though he's the one that made the mistake. So folks, I encourage you to run away from Mark of Freedom and DTSS and go to someone like TJ Henderson instead of him. I hope you guys have seen what Mark did to me, and that you will take your business away from DTSS. Have a good day.